What up, crew? Today we're going to be talking about the 10 worst movies from 2025. Well, at least from the ones that I watched, in my personal opinion, because obviously I didn't watch every single movie from 2025, but these are the ones that I did watch that I liked the least. At number 10 was Materialists. I watched this at home by myself. This film, for me, it was far too capitalistic. It ran a lot on money. The main girl of it was basically trying to set people up for marriage, but they paid her to do it. So it's all these rich people paying her, and that part of it just, I didn't connect with. I don't know anybody who's ever used an expensive dating service like that. I'm sure it exists, but in my part of the world with people I know, I'm kind of outside of that bubble. Dakota Johnson, she is the girl that is hiring people to, hook up for marriage. And she's just really bland as an actress. There are definitely movies that I've seen her in that I think it works for her. The way that she kind of acts and is kind of bland, it actually helps the character along. This one, I'm actually okay with her being bland. She just is kind of bland. But she also kind of gets entangled with somebody they call like a 10 out of 10 perfect catch type guy. And she finds herself bored with him, and she also is involved with her old boyfriend, who's played by Chris Evans. And my least favorite part about it is, like, throughout the film, she likes him again, but they never truly resolved any of their issues. And it's like she just misses this poor man's charm over the, perfect 10 out of 10 catch that she has in Pedro Pascal, because she just finds it to be boring, which, I mean, is definitely could be realistic, but also I just didn't like the way they did it in the movie. It's a completely fine rom-com. It's just wants to be like highly analytical, and maybe that connects for some certain people. For me, it was just one of my lesser favorite rom-com type of movies of the year. IMDb, they've rated it a 6.3 out of 10 from 87,000 different people. On Rotten Tomatoes, they give it a 77% on the tomato meter from 302 critics, and a 66% on the popcorn meter from 2.5 thousand verified ratings. Metacritic gives it a 70 out of 100 from 50 critics, and a 6.1 out of 10 from 185 user ratings. And then on Letterboxd, it's a 2.9 out of 5 from 1.3 million members. So a lot of people watched it, especially through Letterboxd. Personally, I rate Materialists a 7 out of 10. Yeah, that is definitely a high score, maybe for some people, a 7 out of 10, which I am pretty notorious for rating things between 7 through 9. I get entertained pretty easily, and there is entertainment to be had in this movie. So therefore, it is a 7 out of 10. It is fun. Maybe in the future, I could see myself chalking it down to a 6 out of 10 or so, but it's a 7 out of 10. So at number 9, I put Barbara Walters' Tell Me Everything. It's a documentary. I watched this at home by myself. It's a very biased documentary, about Barbara Walters, obviously, and it just shows her in her best light. Honestly, I didn't really know anything about Barbara Walters before I even watched this. I don't know if I had ever watched any of her interviews. I just kind of knew who she was as a person. Some of the people that she interviewed in the world was actually pretty intriguing, and she was like kind of ballsy and not afraid to say anything to anyone, even when she's talking to like dictators of their own country. So that part was actually pretty cool. It's kind of crazy to me that she was one of the first women television anchors out there, and she was like prolific and fearless and ambitious enough to interview anybody. So, but I pretty much hated that. This is the thing I for sure hated. She had a close, long-term relationship with a guy named Roy Cohn, who's basically a legal fixer. And he's the guy who is a mentor to what I consider to be our current world's supervillain, the President of the United States, Donald Trump. And so it kind of just confuses me that Barbara Walters would want to have like such a deep relationship with somebody like that, and it makes me conflicted on probably what her morals as a person might be. So on IMDb, they gave this a 7.6 out of 10 from only 577 ratings. It was not a very watched, at least rated movie. Rotten Tomatoes gives it 100% out of 13 critics, so I don't know if that's saying much. And there is no popcorn meter score because there's less than 50 ratings. Metacritic, it gives it a 65 out of 100 from 6 critics and a 7 out of 10 from 4 different users. Letterboxd gives it a 3.6 out of 5 from 2,000 members. So I rate Barbara Walters Tell Me Everything a 7 out of 10. It's a fine documentary. It's honestly pretty entertaining. Like, I actually had rated it higher, but looking back, I decided to lower it. It's just, it's a documentary. What can I say? Some are really good. Most are pretty mid. This is kind of on the mid to fun side because of just how the things I didn't know about Barbara Walters that I learned. And so that was interesting. All right, at number 8, I have Wolfman. So I went to the theaters with friends and watched this movie. I honestly completely loved, literally, absolutely loved the psychological aspects, viewing it from the wolf's perspective or from the man's perspective that is starting to become the wolf man. The way they kind of had him when his family was talking to him and they kind of just sound like gibberish to him. Really, really cool. And the way it changed his vision, the way he could see things, super freaking awesome. That was something I did love. But for me, the film took way too long to get to the action that at least I was looking for. And it's pretty predictable as far as the story beats go inside of the film. Also, I can't really decide if I like Julia Garner as an actress or not. She's the wife of the main guy. She's also in Weapons. It's like, I think I like her, but at the same time, maybe I don't. Maybe I like her because I don't like her so much that it turns me back around to liking her again. I don't know. It's confusing. And then the scenery in this film is honestly really beautiful. It takes place in Oregon, out in the middle of a cabin in like the forest. And so it's really stunning as far as that goes. Oregon is a beautiful place. I definitely recommend traveling and visiting there if you can anyway. IMDb gives it a 5.6 out of 10 from 42,000 ratings. Rotten Tomatoes gives it a 48% tomato meter out of 283 critics and a 54% popcorn meter from 1,000 verified ratings. Metacritic gives it a 50 out of 100 from 49 critics and a 5.1 out of 10 from 116 users. Letterboxd, it's a 2.4 out of 5 from 228,000 members. So I rate Wolfman a 7 out of 10. I could probably see some people, especially if they're excited or like werewolves or excited about the old Wolfman movies, they could have been really hyped for this and been very disappointed, or they like the concept, and this could have been one of the more disappointing films for a lot of people out there. All right, at number 7, I'm giving it to Bono, Stories of Surrender. You probably haven't heard of this. I barely did. I watched this at home by myself. This is just like it's not really a documentary. It's also not really a concert. I don't really know how to describe it. It's like much more of an artsy, personal concert. Kind of takes place in one setting, but then it's also edited. It was honestly kind of interesting in that aspect. So yeah, it's just like a fancily edited live event. It would probably be like way better to experience that live and in person, which honestly I could have seen being really powerful. So the film itself, I believe it's based around like an event tour for a book that he wrote, a book he called Stories of Surrender, which just basically talks about his life and like the lyrics that he has written for songs for his band U2. I'm sure that I know there's people out there that will find this film to be pretentious. But like I said, it's fairly enjoyable to watch. I'm not mad at it. There's definitely some inspiring parts to it. But it's, pretty biased because it comes from Bono's perspective. So IMDb, they give it a 7.2 out of 10 from 1.4 thousand ratings. Rotten Tomatoes, a 75% tomato meter out of 48 critics. And it's a question mark on the popcorn meter because there's really no ratings for it on Rotten Tomatoes. Metacritic gave it a 59 out of 100 from 15 critics and a 4.3 out of 10 from 24 user ratings. Letterboxd, they did a 3.6 out of 5 from 3,000 members. And I give Bono's Stories of Surrender a 7 out of 10. It is just, I don't even know why I watched this. I was just looking to watch things from 2025 so I could just fill my 2025 movie space. I did actually end up watching, I believe, 41 movies from 2025 during 2025. And this just so happened to be one of them. At number 6, I gotta give it to Unknown Number, the High School Catfish. It was on Netflix. I watched this at home by myself. It was honestly very popular, I believe. It was so big on social media that the twist inside of the movie actually got spilled to me before I ever watched this film. So if you don't know what this is about, I highly recommend honestly watching it because it's a pretty, the story behind the documentary is way more interesting than the documentary itself. And I feel really bad for the main girl in high school that the documentary's about, her life and the struggles of the catfish person that's texting her, being just downright abusive and terrible to her throughout the entire film. I feel bad for her though, because she like just wants to live a normal, loving, and have a happy family life at the end of the film, or like she says stuff like that at the end of the film. And so I honestly feel really bad for her. She seems like a very sweet person that is being stronger than the like terrible things that happened to her during this film. Like I said, the story behind the film is literally way more interesting than the documentary film itself. But the story is honestly like crazy, I really did not like the documentary makers of this. They leave a lot of room for the antagonist to be seen with like good grace and mercy, which is just way more than they deserve to have. So yeah, I don't want to say much else because I could spoil the twist that I think is the best part. Maybe you already know the twist. A fly just flew into my eye. I don't know if you saw that. That was crazy. Anyway, IMDb 6.7 out of 10 from 20,000 ratings. Rotten Tomatoes, they give it an 85% tomato meter from 13 critics and a 69% popcorn meter from 250 verified ratings. Metacritic, it's got a question mark out of 100 because there's only 4 critics that reviewed it, but a 6 out of 10 from 21 user ratings. Letterboxd gives it a 2.7 out of 5 from 329,000 members. I gotta give Unknown Number, the High School Catfish, a 6 out of 10 because, like I said, the documentary side of it, honestly, pretty atrocious. The story behind it, pretty interesting. At number 5, I'm giving it to Novocaine. I watched this at a friend's house with some friends, of course. This, for me, was my personal most disappointing movie of the year. I was really interested and kind of excited for this film. It's a guy who can't feel any pain, and he basically almost becomes like a superhero because he can't feel any pain. And I know they've kind of done that before, but I was just really excited for this one. It seemed really good. I really wanted it to deliver. There's definitely some stories and concepts that are there, and it gets the ball rolling, but it just doesn't excel like at anything at all throughout the movie very well. Of course, the action and gore elements are the better parts of the film, but they're even not as fulfilling as like what I wanted it to, have. So I think that if you could buy into the romance that the film portrays in the beginning of this movie, you could actually have a really fun and enjoyable time watching it. I just had a lot of like questions about why the main character, which is Jack Quaid, I believe, why he's doing some of the things that he's doing, or like, he basically goes on one date with this girl and then decides to become a superhero to save her because she got kidnapped. It's kind of ridiculous. Like I said, this was disappointing for me because I thought it was going to be really good, and it was pretty mediocre. IMDb gives it a 6.5 out of 10 from 85,000 ratings. Rotten Tomatoes, they do an 81% from 221 critics on the tomato meter, and an 84% popcorn meter from 1,000 verified ratings. Metacritic gives it a 58 out of 100 from 38 critics and a 6 out of 10 from 175 users. Letterboxd goes with a 3.1 out of 5 from 463,000 members. I rated Novocaine a 6 out of 10. It's not like it was an atrocious film. Like, it's a fine watch and it's entertaining, but that's why it's like disappointing to me, is because it's a fine watch. All right, at number 4 is The Thursday Murder Club. I watched this at home by myself. This was a pretty popular movie on Netflix. Honestly, the main cast, they do a really good job, and they're really entertaining with portraying their characters. They're just a bunch of elderly people trying to solve cold cases. Other than that, though, I really struggled finding much enjoyment out of this movie in general. I feel like the whole club, especially the leader of the club, a lady named Elizabeth, was incredibly manipulative, and they had incredibly thin morals for a group of people that are trying to solve old cold cases. And with how the film goes about the storytelling and the general vibes, it just feels way too incredibly safe to be thrilling. It just feels like very cookie cutter. And then also at the end of the movie, that part can basically set itself on fire. It's incredibly disappointing. I was like, what is going on? Why did they... Well, again, the morals of the people and the things that they choose to do and let slide and not let slide as far as how they uphold their morals is baffling. So IMDb, it's a 6.5 out of 10 from 81,000 ratings. Rotten Tomatoes, a 77% on the tomato meter from 139 critics, a 54% on the popcorn meter from 1,000 verified ratings. Metacritic, they give it a 60 out of 100 from 25 critics and a 6.1 out of 10 from 89 user ratings. Letterboxd, they give a 3 out of 5 from 324,000 members. I give Thursday Murder Club a 6 out of 10. Again, it's just another fine movie. You can watch it. You can have a good time. You can let it just bloop into your head, bloop right out of your head. All right, coming into the top 3, we got Our Fault, also known as Culpa Nuestra. I don't speak Spanish, I'm sorry. I watched this at home by myself. Another Netflix movie. Really, I kind of hate myself for not looking into this movie before I watched it. It was just kind of popular on Letterboxd and stuff. This is actually the third film in a trilogy of films. I have not seen any of the other movies. I went into it blind just because it was popular and a new movie. This film is literal true slop. There's this on again, off again relationship between the people that are the romantic couple that are pushing and pulling each other the whole time. And then you find out, at least I find out, I think it's this way throughout all the movies, but they're freaking step siblings. And I'm like, what's going on in this movie? And then one thing that drives me crazy, there's cars on the front cover that are like driving fast, and then the genre of the film says it's a car action film, and there's seriously like one car chase sequence in the entire film, and it's not very exciting on top of that. So that just literally drove me insane. So there's like seriously 50 plus more things that are literally inherently bad and insane about this film. But because of all of the craziness, it's like a car crash that you can't look away from. And so there's some entertainment value there. That's why it's not the worst movie of the year that I watched, because you're kind of like, this is so bad. Am I having fun? Maybe. It could also be because I didn't watch the first couple movies. I actually enjoyed it more. Maybe if I had watched the first 2 movies, maybe I would have liked it less. Either way, IMDb gives it a 5.3 out of 10 from 7.3 thousand ratings. Rotten Tomatoes, they got a question mark on the tomato meter because only 9 critics have rated it, and a 34% on the popcorn meter from 50 verified ratings. Metacritic, they got a question mark out of 100 from 4 critics, and a 3.8 out of 10 from 6 whole user ratings. Letterboxd, they got it down all the way down to a 1.9 out of 5 from 139,000 members. Quite a few people watched it on Letterboxd and rated it pretty bad. So I rate Our Fault, Culpa Nuestra, a 6 out of 10 because it's so much slop that I'm like, it's like it's like that popcorn. You put the popcorn in the meme of the comments, of the drama comments. That's this film. All right, finally at number 2, this is honestly probably a lot of people's most disappointing movie of the year, Happy Gilmore 2. I watched this at a friend's house with some friends, and then we all went and played Top Golf afterwards because they love Happy Gilmore. A lot of people do. So we played golf afterwards. That was awesome. So I think the only thing that I truly liked about this film is the kind of new golf league that they present. There's some really unique ideas and challenges that are inside of the golf competition that I thought was pretty cool. And I honestly would legit watch a golf competition like that in the real world if they had some zany over-the-top golf competition that has all this crazy like golf holes and stuff. And the other thing I liked, Bad Bunny is in this movie as a golf caddy, I believe, and he was actually pretty great. But other than that, Adam Sandler, he like wanted to put so many cameos inside of this movie. It's like basically just a whole watch party of like, oh, I know that guy, I know him, or I know that person. Hey, there she is. You just, you see all these people and it makes your brain go, ooh, familiarity. Speaking of the familiarity thing, it's pretty sad because there's also times that it's trying to play off of its nostalgia from Happy Gilmore, literally playing parts of the original Happy Gilmore inside of this movie, rather than creating its own unique experience inside of the Happy Gilmore universe. And then one of the most egregious things, honestly, giving this film a longer runtime than the original, far better movie was a terrible decision. So IMDb gives it a 6.1 out of 100 6.1 out of 10 from 114,000 ratings. Rotten Tomatoes, they give it a 62% on the tomato meter from 127 critics and a 64% on a popcorn meter from 5,000 verified ratings. Metacritic gives it a 52 out of 100 from 23 critics and a 5.4 out of 10 from 201 user ratings. Letterboxd, it's a 2.7 out of 5 from 714,000 ratings. And I give Happy Gilmore 2 a 6 out of 10. Man, there's some fun to be had. Eminem, actually, probably the thing I laughed at the most is Eminem's part. He's in it for very little, but Eminem was great in it. And I don't know what else to say. Whatever. It was Happy Gilmore too. It was also basically slop. And finally, my number one least favorite movie that I watched in 2025 is The Home. I actually went to theaters with my dad to go see AMC Scream Unseen, which is basically a movie that is about to come out that is not quite out yet, so you get to see it a little bit early. The Scream Unseen is the horror version of AMC's Screen Unseen, which could be any movie. So I wanted to experience something like that. I've never been to like a mystery movie. It was that part was cool. So the first thing that this movie does wrong is it has Pete Davidson as the main star. Man, he just like really a bad main guy for a movie like this. He could be a decent side guy maybe in a movie, but as the main star, the main protagonist, Pete Davidson was not it, at least for me. I didn't even enjoy the antagonists in this movie. I didn't even enjoy any of the side characters that were trying to help him. There's one side character that like he sets up these security cameras to see what's going on inside of the retirement home that he's staying at because he has to do community service because he got in legal trouble. Anyway, he sets up this surveillance system. When he's looking at the surveillance system, somebody hacks into it, and the graphics, the mask that they're wearing, everything about it, like they're, I don't know, glitching out all weird. It's so cheesy and cornballish that like I literally nearly laughed out loud inside of the theater at that part because it was so just bad. And then, you know, I enjoyed-ish some of the mysteries that he was trying to solve inside of the retirement home. Because he couldn't leave since he was doing community service there. And, you know, but he kind of solves some of the mystery pretty quick. But then there's actually a little bit more mystery that I didn't expect that deepened a little bit. So that part was okay. And then the only thing I kind of actually was okay with was the end of this movie. It's the most redeeming part of it because it's just so over the top and violent by the end. That part was actually pretty great. That's what made me go, okay, I don't actually hate this movie. This is an okay movie. IMDb 5.5 out of 10 from 8.6 thousand ratings. Rotten Tomatoes a 29% on the tomato meter from 55 critics and a 58% on the popcorn meter from 250 verified ratings. Metacritic, it's a 39 out of 100 from 11 critics and a 3.8 out of 10 from 18 user ratings. Letterboxd, 2.5 out of 5 from 29,000 members. I gotta give The Home a 5 out of 10. So yeah, for me, 5 out of 10 was the lowest film that I watched in 2025 because again, I get entertained fairly easily. For me, if I'm hitting a 4 or less, the movie has to be pretty much trash or something about it is so trash, there's virtually no redeeming qualities. For example, a movie for me that's a big movie that I rate a 4 out of 10 is Madam Web. The story is a terrible story. The only reason I even bump it up to a 4 is because some of the action scenes, some of the visual filming of it, I mean, it's not too bad. I mean, it was made by Sony, so of course they put some money into it. Once I go lower than that, I don't know if I've ever rated a movie a 1 out of 10. 3 out of 10 is pretty rare for me. 2 out of 10 is super rare for me. So yeah, I don't rate much too low. I like to give a higher score. Just the fact that we have movies in this world and that they can come to fruition and just be created is nearly a miracle. And I like to be entertained. And like I said, I get entertained easy. So hopefully this video was entertaining for you and it helped entertain you easily. If it did or didn't, please subscribe to this channel. There's going to be tons more movie reviews over here, other top 10 lists, all kinds of stuff. If you could like this video, I would really appreciate it. And leave a comment. Let me know, what movie did you hate this year that you watched? Or I say this year, it's 2026 now. What movie did you hate last year in 2025? What was your least favorite film that you watched? Or, you know, a few films that you watched that you were like, I didn't much care for that at all. I'm actually pretty curious. I really am interested. I want to know what other people thought were terrible movies, like on a personal level, not on a general, I just Google search, oh, this is what people didn't like. I want to personally know some takes. So if you could let me know, I'd really appreciate that. Yeah, that's basically it. That's the end of my 2025. I did a best video, best top 10 movies from 2025. You can go back and watch that if you want to. This is the worst. I did a top 10 of my favorite movies from 2016. I'm going to go further and further back. I'm not really going to do too many of like, this is the worst film, I hate this movie, blah, blah, blah. I just review movies. I'm going to just give them my honest opinion. And a lot of times I get decent entertainment value out of movies, even if they're kind of bad. Something like The Toxic Avenger. It's really not a good movie, but it's kind of fun, you know? There's a bunch of other movies out there like that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of talking so the videos here pop up at the end, and I'm not talking about the, you know, main subject matter of this film. All right, or video, YouTube video. It's not a film. What am I talking about? This is a crappy YouTube video. Love ya. See you later.